Welcome to the podcast. Okay, I am Sophanie Yap, your host and PME lead at DDAS. Before we dive into today's topic, this episode is proudly brought to you by Riversec and DDAS. The Digital Defence Alliance Singapore, or DDAS, is dedicated to strengthen Singapore's digital defence as part of the Total Defence Strategy, working with partners like MINDEF, Nexus, the Defence Cyber Command, and the National Youth Council to empower youth, PME, women, and leaders. And a special shout out to our sponsor, Riversec. These guys are serious about offensive cybersecurity. They are trusted in some of the most complex and highly regulated environments, and they don't just talk about security, they make it work. Whether you are looking to achieve ISO 27001 or SOC 2 certification, or you want to run a full team exercise, Riversec experts make the process smooth and stress-free. They bring deep technical expertise with a very pragmatic mindset, helping organizations stay ahead and turn cybersecurity into a real business advantage. Now, let's get into today's conversation. Joining us today, we have Daisy Redford from Riversec, so I'll let her do her own introduction.
Oh, hey, Sophanie. Well, you did an amazing job at summing up what Riversec does. So I'm the Regional Managing Director, so I support just a fantastic team here in Singapore. But we're a global company, so we operate on that basis because, as we all know, cyber doesn't have any boundaries. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited about the topic we're talking about today as well.
Very happy to have you here. So we will jump straight into the topic today. And today's episode is titled PME in the Digital Age Securing Skills and Systems. So who are PME actually? So PME actually stands for Professionals, Managers, and as well as Executives. And these are the people that are right at the heart of digital transformation in our organization. And we all know that digital tools and cloud platforms have reshaped how we worked. And PMEs are now expected to move fast, stay productive, as well as managing growing risks. So the big question now is, how do PME stay productive without becoming the weakest link in the cybersecurity space? So we are going to unpack three important topics today. Firstly, we are going to talk about what skills PME needs to thrive in digitally transformed workplace. Two, how productivity and cybersecurity can and must go hand in hand. And third, why cybersecurity awareness is now part of professional excellence and not just an IT issue. So talking about evolving roles of PMEs, big question is, I wanted to ask Daisy was, how has the role of PME changed in today's digital workplace from your opinion?
Yeah. So as we all know, all workplaces are now digital workplaces. I find it interesting. So I have a lot of different hats, outside the day job, as you do, Sophie. We're all very busy. Yes. But, sometimes I sit on tech committees, for example. Yes. And then I'm always thinking, how do I define a tech committee? It's everything these days. Yeah. And so for PMEs, it's the decision-making process is their absolute fundamentals. That's what they are in place to do, to try and make decisions that ultimately allow their teams to produce or deliver whatever the clients are looking for. And their decision-making data now is all coming from digital tools.
Yes.
And it's whether the digital tool is the way that they receive that data or whether the digital tool is the way that that data is captured and monitored. Mm-hmm. And in most circumstances, it's actually both. So for PMEs, for anyone leading any sort of decision-making or any sort of teams, you need to get the confidence in order to say that, yes, I am digitally native and I can do this in this modern world.
Definitely, right? So if I were to follow up with this, right, what would you think would be one of the struggles that most of the PME would be facing when they're adopting new digital tools? Because it is part of an important part when we are using all this, right? Digital tools to help them to elevate their work. So what are some of the struggles that you see?
Yeah. I find it really interesting, and particularly it's always interesting when you get those super, super senior, like CISO, C-suite type people who they open up about their vulnerabilities, about using something technical or talking on some digital topic. Mm-hmm. But what always tends to be like the common constant in that is that it's a mindset issue.
Okay.
It's not that they don't have the abilities to learn how to be more digitally savvy. It's just that they've got a confidence blocker. So as long as you keep a mindset that's humble and it's agile and it's got that thirst to actually research into what these tools are doing, kind of I was about to say the back end. You obviously don't need to know all the way to the technical back end,
Yeah.
but really what the underlying purpose of that tool is, what the limitations of that tool is. That's the piece that I find that can either make or break someone. If they don't have that open mindset, then it doesn't matter kind of how technical you are.
Yeah.
You're going to not be able to apply it into what you need it to be able to do.
Yeah, especially just now when you talk about like this mindset change, and then they need to be very positive of this mindset change. So which means that it's no longer just also enough for them to just know how to use it, right? Because they have to not only just know how to use the tool and be open about it, they also need to be as quick, as fast, and know how to use it well as well. So how will you encourage, people who are in that description that you're talking about to also adopt it?
Because I think actually, even if we just pick it like what well means,
Yeah.
because I think sometimes, particularly on very large multinational corporations, the tools sometimes get pushed down.
Yes. Yeah.
So, we're sitting here in region and we're being told, okay, you need to be using this accountancy tool. And the PMEs over here, they'll kind of go to the training and they'll get the gist of some of the basic functions, but they'll not truly understand how then that supports the growth of the company. And so it's that kind of uncertainty that then feeds down into the wider group.
Yeah.
So defining what well means. So what is the purpose behind the tool? And, I mentioned what are the limitations so that you can feed that down to your team so that they know up front, this is going to be annoying at this point. It's going to cause a bit of friction at this point. But also so you can feed it back up to the decision makers, to the board, to say, you think you're bringing me this tool that's going to mean that these reports are accessible any day, any time, but actually there's still quite a lot of manual inputs and we need to edit this. So those really sensible thought processes are the piece that make digital savviness something that actually drives the business.
And I know that you are a leader in your organization, so understand the conflict of, something that was pushed from top down and then you have to drive that. So how do you actually set the tone for your people, right? To have a secure digital behavior, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been in technology for a good while and engineering before that. So I think one of the things that everyone needs to go in with is the humbleness to know that there isn't any one tool out there that is a magic wand.
Yeah.
We all felt that it might have got there when ChatGPT was first launched, but then all the hallucinations and all everything that wasn't quite the answers we needed started coming through. So I think that's how I start off. Any sort of tool that I'm looking at, any sort of digital change I'm looking to bring in, I make sure I go in with the view that this cannot save everything, or this cannot, saves maybe too far. This can't improve absolutely everything that I'm trying to improve.
Okay.
And then I make sure that I then dissect, the communications in terms of how then to launch that into the company. And that is a piece, again, that I think most of us fall down on. So it's not about technology change that tends to be the piece that doesn't result in the return on investment. It's the cultural change. So having that communication plans really clear, you yourself as a leader being really confident over using the tool and understanding what the output's going to be, that just weighs so heavily into whether it's going to be a success or not. Because your team can feel that. they can smell it off you.
So you actually lead by example. So you actually will try on the tool yourself and then you explore and then you actually pass the limitation up and then feedback accordingly. So actually this drives to the other segment about upskilling as well. We talk about, because while we are adopting new tools and new digital platforms, I think there are also parts where the skills might not match to, what is being used in the organization. In fact, before that, I also wanted to ask on some examples that you could, because you were talking about, being humble, probably you can give me also an example of how you have successfully transformed certain behaviors, like because you talk about cultural change, like how they could, it's a culture shift. Any examples that you can share with us on that?
Yeah. I mean, lots. So like, I love change management. I'm a big fan of it. So, and I love technology. So the two go together for me. So I think one really good example, actually, with a previous employer, huge engineering company, 100,000 employees worldwide, and we thought it'd be great to adopt Confluence. So using a wiki page where we could just get better at sharing lessons and sharing details. And for anyone that's used a tool like that, if you're able to write in a Word document, you're able to use Confluence. It's simple. It's really just about opening the page. Even the tooling is made very intuitive in terms of, there's not too many fonts you can pick from. There's not too many features that you can add in.
Okay.
So you think to yourself, an engineering company that are solving some of the world's most complex problems, asking everyone to start using a tool that's as simple as type would be easy. Like, surely everyone in the company has that skill.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. It just, people didn't use it. And that's when you have to step back. You're like, this isn't about whether people can use the technology. It's about the cultural shift. It's about the change management piece, which is people's behaviors. So the way that we managed to overcome that was pulling together task forces. Okay. So we have, super users within different, either within the different domains or within the different countries, pending how your company's set up. And we have them just plugging it. Every meeting has this gone up to Confluence. Every email that comes through, send us the link to where that page is. Okay. You need to have that kind of constant communication if you're wanting a tool to become a habit, which was our ultimate goal. And it took months. I can't tell you, and you need to stay on it. And, as a leader, you get a bit annoyed because you're like, I have asked you, I have put it into my town halls. I have put it into my, weekly emails. I have asked in every single meeting, why is nobody doing what I'm asking? But you just need to recognize that change takes time. And you need to recognize that if you don't stay consistent with it, the habit won't form. So having that in mind at the offset, I think, does give you more patience. And then ultimately we got there. Took 6 months, but ultimately...
And everybody actually, all goes to the platform. Nice.
Yeah. And then it started driving all the behaviors that we wanted in search of
So how do you manage those, employees or staff that there's really a clear direction from the company to say, please, even the management is using this is the de facto and this is sort of like your KPI. And then even for myself, my organization, that we had things like that that's happening where there's a certain platform that's already been adopted as part of the tool, but there are still people that choose to do a manual way, even after the allocated months. I think that was a nice one that you said, okay, 6 months, we get it all done, right? But in a big MNC, there will be so many people, right? What should they do, right? How can we drive them, right? All to that 100% of the group of people, like say, okay, let's all come here. Because for example, it's still, after years, there are still people that not want to.
They're just not.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's about assessing what does that mean to the company. That's where I always start. I'm sure we'll get onto this, but does that then create potential security implications? So you're talking about then shadow IT or shadow AI, which is, the newest area of vulnerability that's grown. But starting to work out, right, where, if we have an anomaly, we have an exception, what is the impact to the business? And assessing it from a risk-based place is a really sensible route to take. Okay. Because then you can start making informed decisions on, right, if it is a security vulnerability, because they're keeping something going that shouldn't be going, then, based on my risk appetite, that's a clear black mark. We need to sit down with the team or the individual and really work out either, it's from a mandatory perspective, or try and work out, what have we missed? Why are you holding on to this tool so much? But if it's a money thing, again, that might be a black mark, but that might start to put you into a grey space in terms of, actually, is this exception something that we can live with? Is this individual delivering something that is so required for the company that actually them having a unique working style is something that we're going to accept. So it's much about putting it into the company's context. And you can hear I just love like a data-driven approach. So feeding through the kind of risk parameters, I think is a really good way of approaching
Actually, I like
it.
the explanation using security as a concern. And in fact, on the controversy, people will be thinking that, I mean, not all of them are in cyber because we are in cyber actually. So we understood the risk there. But many of the people in the organization, they are not. That's not part of their business. And they assume that cyber is slowing them down, right? So do you think personally, productivity and security are really in conflict?
I love your smile because I think you know my answer. Absolutely not. So I actually have a favorite analogy of this. And if anyone's ever seen me on a panel, like you will have heard me say this a million times. But I use the analogy of why brakes were put on to cars. So we all think to ourselves, a brake is something that's going to stop something.
Yeah.
But actually brakes were put onto cars so that cars could drive faster.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. I learned something new today.
No, and it works. As an analogy, it works so well for cyber. So up until brakes were fully formed into what we recognize today, what would have to happen is you're driving your car along and you see a bend in the road. You would have to slow your acceleration in order to then take that turn and not go spinning off to the side.
Yeah.
As soon as brakes became a proper technology, that meant you could accelerate all the way to right up close to the bend, put on the brake, make the turn safely, and then accelerate away. And that's what cyber is for productivity. That's what cyber is for all companies. If we don't have cyber, then we have to go at a slower pace because otherwise vulnerabilities and the risks of the entire business is going to remain constant. As soon as you put appropriate cyber controls in place, then run, go as fast as you can, launch those products as quickly as you can, because you can know that, cyber by design has been put in from day one, and therefore launching it out there isn't going to cause, massive ramifications for you.
I like this because it's telling people that you need to be safe to run fast, right? And then you want to run fast, you need to know that you are secure, right?
Exactly.
That's why you can excel. And on that, what do you think an organization can do to encourage this secure behavior without too overwhelming, our employees?
Yeah. So, common theme to this discussion, but a big bit is culture.
Yeah.
Which is hard. It's an annoying answer, I know. Because in one way, it's a quick, easy answer, like sort out culture. But as we all know, it's just such a hard thing to try and achieve.
Yeah, correct.
So I think it's about small habits. It's about making sure passwords are secure and they align with risk policies, making sure we're not sharing passwords, even on admin platforms and access controls there. It's making sure that we've got multi-factor authentication. It's making sure that people are open about the different tools that they're using.
Yeah.
So I've already mentioned shadow IT being a massive vulnerability to organizations. So if you don't have psychological safety within your team, then the likelihood of shadow IT being there is very, very high. So you need to have that atmosphere where people are able to ask questions, are able to talk about challenges they're facing to get their job done. And therefore you can work out together whether there's digital tooling that can help them. So it's culture. It's annoying. It's culture.
Okay. Now, it's a simple answer, but I think culture is a lot more than just culture, right? There are a lot more things that we need to implement as well. And on upskilling, I think our audience would like to know, what does smart digital upskilling looks like, for the PMEs today?
Yeah. So I think the first piece of this is recognizing that there is no such thing as a technology expert. there's no such thing as a cyber expert. And I say that I quite like to call myself a cyber expert, but it really doesn't mean anything. Like, you think about it, like you and I are both in cyber. We have vastly different experiences when it comes to cyber.
Yeah.
So it's just such a broad domain, cyber, and then cyber sits within technology. So again, like you're talking about being expert in an ocean.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing for any PME that's got anxiety or slightly nervous about the digital wave is to just recognize that there is no one out there that is a technology expert. People you've spoken to that you would regard as technology experts are experts within their domain.
Yeah.
And even true geniuses that they might have like 2 or 3 domains, it still is 2 or 3 domains out of hundreds. So I think that's the first thing everyone needs to recognize, because I feel like as soon as you recognize that, then you can go in with the confidence you need to start researching tools that are prevalent to you and your business. And then the research can also be quite daunting to start with. But again, I feel that's more because the vocabulary that's used in technology is elitist, let's face it. We like to use a lot of lovely acronyms. We like to use terms that have been borrowed and, you know, put into our space that tend to mean something kind of different. So it's an easy case of doing some of the basic certifications out there. Quite a lot of them are free as well. So I'll make a plug for ISC2 because I sit on the board of ISC2.
Okay.
So, you know, we've got the CC program, which is, you know, absolutely designed for those that are either at a very early stage of their career wanting to develop that within cyber, but also for partners of legal firms that are wanting to build up their confidence with cyber terminology. So undertaking something like that, and there are plenty others out there, but undertaking something like that then just gives you the vocabulary that you need in order to then jump into the research to find out exactly what these toolings can deliver for you.
Yeah, in fact, thanks for mentioning about CC. I thought I took the CC as well.
Oh, amazing.
Even though I'm not an expert for sure, and then not in any domain, but what you correctly mentioned was, you know, to be relevant, to be speaking that jargon, you know, to be the same, you know, you understood what people are talking about if you are really interested to be in this space. And I guess because there are so many different kinds of certifications, ISC Square is one, and then we have so many more. And not only just we need to be familiarized with cyber-related skills, but to go digital, I think they are just beyond cyber. And so how can a PME prioritize what? I mean, of course, they will choose something that's relevant to them, you know, but maybe can give us an example how they should be prioritizing. I think cyber certification would be only relevant to people that, okay, I'm in cyber, so I would probably prioritize cyber as something key, right? But there are so many more things that
cyber. No. I'll try and be slightly unbiased. I don't know if I can, you know. So what I would say is the reason I would plug cyber, I'm trying to be unbiased in my head.
No, because that was what students asked me as well. Sorry to cut you there. Because they were saying that, you know, in schools, like, you know, in Singapore, for example, there are a lot of courses, you know, to be cyber, I would not say expert, to be in cyber. There are many other domains that, you know, the students would have to, you know, or even when we talk about mid-career change, right? There are multiple domains that is required, but it's not only just cyber.
You're right. Yeah. The reason I would try and plug, you know, doing something like a general entry cyber as a starting point is because with all these different cyber qualifications, they do talk about cyber throughout technology domains. So it is a clever way of just trying to understand a little bit more about AI, a little bit more about cloud, a little bit more about infrastructure, because as you're trying to learn about what good cyber hygiene, good secure companies look like, all the qualifications bring in, you know, bits about different technology areas. So yeah, terrible ability to be unbiased. But I would
Yes.
genuinely start there. And then, as you say,
Yeah.
the prioritization needs to come down to, you know, what your company's interests are, what your own interests are.
Yes.
If you're a career switcher, and I'm a huge advocate for career switching because I think it's a fantastic piece that technology particularly is enabling
Mm-hmm.
and the technology industry really needs, because we need that diversity of thought coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Working out then what you've done previously,
Yeah.
because I've spoken to career switchers that say have been English teachers,
Oh.
and they are perfect to come in and start looking at linguistics and start looking at AI and LLMs in terms of how they're being generated and how they're speaking to the audiences. So I think coming up with the prioritization in a very personal level, coming up with it from a company context, that should then lead you to what area that you then can narrow in on.
Side question. Since you are leader in your organization, because you mentioned that you advocate for people that is doing career switch. So what's your preference when you look at people from career switch? Is there any particular domain or industry that you particularly think that they suit Riverside, for example, right?
Absolutely. And absolutely. I always would look at career switchers because I'm a huge believer in that diversity of thought. So in Riversec, we are very specialist in terms of offensive cyber and resilience is our core.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I'm hiring for a consultant, I am having to make sure that the technical skills are really, you know, world leading.
Yeah.
And in order to get there, you do tend to have had to come from a technology background. But when I'm looking at those supporting roles, which are equally important for driving the business, so project management's a great example. So I've hired project managers that actually came from psychology backgrounds. This one person, and I'll not embarrass her by naming her, but she had the most eclectic CV. She actually started off studying music and then she went into psychology. And then she even dabbled with going into the forces. And then coming out of that, you know, wanted to go into project management. Multi-talented, but also just she came in with such a richness, you know, her ability to kind of pull together different learnings from all those different brains that she's got in there was amazing. So absolutely, I would, you know, I'd never discount switchers at all for roles that were technically based. But obviously if it's, you need those engineering qualifications.
Of course.
I mean, not that I would discount them, but I would just be very impressed if they managed to get there, having also had other careers.
Nice and consoling to know for all our PMEs out there that there is a chance to get a job yourself or a career in the cybersecurity space. And talking about cybersecurity, I think it's also important to adopt good cyber practice, right? And probably let's get very, very practical. What are some of the simple everyday habits that you think our PMEs can adopt to improve cybersecurity? I think you already mentioned some just now, like password, you know, please don't share and stuff. Any other, you know, habits that they should have? Yeah.
Well, when I go into clients, I can almost immediately kind of get a vibe for where they are in their cyber maturity, you know, even without doing all the assessments that are required to do that. And it really comes down to the leader's style. So are they the type to engage with their staff? Are they the type to share their own struggles with, you know, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis? So communication, by far the best habit that could be brought into an organization in order to increase the maturity. And communication, obviously that means like both ways, you know, being able to articulate what you as a leader are focused on, what habits you want to be generating, but the communication of hearing and listening properly to your teams, understanding their workflows and making sure that you're building digital workflows that have that in mind.
Okay. And we talk about the other very major cyber concern. We talked about phishing, and I guess it happens to all kinds of organization. They are very sophisticated ones already. how should PME look out for this? Like phishing.
The phishing. Yeah. And I love it because in cyber circles, we're like, oh my gosh, we've been talking about this for years and years and years. How can we still be talking about it?
Yes.
But as you said, it is still the biggest risk to an organization.
Yes.
So it's just a healthy level of skepticism. That's not quite the right word, is it? Skepticism. Skepticism.
Yeah.
So just making sure that you're double checking when someone sends you a link, being really, really conscious when there senses any sort of pressure or any sort of urgency. We're all humans. We all have this as a potential coming at us. So it's not about forever being scared, but it's just about having, you talk about habit, just having that habit that you double check if anything, you just feel slightly off. And actually, even setting your team kind of targets, so make sure you're asking 3 times a week is actually not a bad, not quite a KPI, but not a bad ask to put out there. Because then even if your employees, don't receive anything that looks slightly unusual, at least they're kind of in that spirit of like, oh, I better ask about something, like it might as well be this. So just having that kind of viewpoint that we're all humans, it's going to happen, but we just need to keep asking those questions. And even if it makes us feel slightly stupid, asking is better than the alternative.
Do you also run campaigns to test out, their awareness on phishing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Campaigns are useful, definitely. Particularly if you don't have that culture where people are likely to put up their hand to say they're not sure of something, it's a hard culture to achieve. So that's where the campaigns work really well. So we run them. If you are running them with your business, make sure you're using a vendor that's reputable because you really want to get the proper insights that come back from that. It's not that useful if you just find out, okay, 5 people click the link and nothing else that kind of comes from it. You need to make sure you follow that up with training and proper communications around kind of the psychology on why you might have clicked it. The other the other piece I love doing a lot is, you do multiple phishing campaigns and then you can have a really good discussion with your teams about, right, only 90% didn't click on this. Why was this one more suspicious to you than say this one where 40% of you actually clicked on it? Because then you start getting your team into the psychology and the psyche of how these phishing attacks take place.
Because I know some organizations that they actually took it very serious, and when it comes to such campaigns, they actually put it as part of their KPI if let's say they don't meet a certain level of percentage.
Yeah. I mean, if that works for the company culture, then brilliant. Yeah, it works. As long as you're doing something that's getting the conversation going, and then you're doing something that means that the conversation is meaningful. We do a lot of red team, and they're a lot of fun, and phishing plays a big part into that, but not just that email phishing. Yeah. So obviously there's phone calls that you can do. Yeah. But my favorite ones.
You mean you can red team a phone call?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, very effective as well. I mean, a little bit less with the Gen Zs. They don't pick up their phones so much, but we're normally targeting the very seniors.
Yeah, this is my first time hearing this.
Oh, really? Yes. Oh, so effective. Okay. Yeah, so effective. And I'll throw another one at you because this is another one that we did in the last few years. It was massively effective, and it's physical. So you actually, turn up at the office and you either in a boiler suit or something, and you try and make entry into a data center.
Wow.
And you'd be surprised about how often that works with just simply kind of dressing up and looking the part. Yeah. Wow. So we do some really fun stuff. And actually, I know we're kind of running out of time, but let me show you this last one on a red team because this just shows how funny humans are. So it wasn't in Singapore, but it was Riversec.
Oh my God, I'm scared now.
No, you'll like it. Okay. So it was over in one of our Scandinavian clients that was
people judge this book by its cover, you see. It's always good to...
Well, this person, our
Good looking.
consultant. Almost the opposite. So they turned up in a full chicken mascot suit. The full thing, like the full, you couldn't see the person's face, like the full, the massive big outfit, right?
Okay.
They walk up to the desk and they've got like 7 pizzas or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I've been told like it's someone's birthday, like I need to deliver these. So
smart.
Yeah.
So smart.
And it was quite a fun startup type company. So then the person was like, sure, I mean, this looks bizarre, but it looks bizarre enough not to be fake. The person got led in and they were like, yeah, and it's one of the seniors. So they got led all the way to the CEO's office. CEO wasn't there. And the guy was able to spend like 20 minutes in a massive chicken mascot, just roaming the C-suite offices.
But is there an outcome that you're trying to sniff out?
Yeah, well, we they got access to everything that was out. They were, and it just shows in terms of human psychology, like as soon as something kind of like it's like slightly plausible, even if it is a person delivering pizzas in a chicken suit, our like levels just go down and we just let them in. Yeah, and then they were able to access, and it was a red team, so we didn't like.
So your red teamers are good at imposing.
They're amazing. They're like half like technology, like world leaders, half like actors.
That's why you are talking about being multi-talented, right? You need to have people of all sorts of background to be imposing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing.
My God.
So watch out for the chicken suits.
Wow. Okay, I haven't seen that in Singapore, but I guess this gives us some idea that, know, how people just let down their guard.
The kind of boiler suit, like the workman's like outfit is more common. And,
actually I'm enjoying this conversation and sort of almost forgotten my flow because I'm really very intrigued by, the ability that Riverside can do such in-depth like red teaming exercises. And I guess people generally thought for conversation's sake, right? I mean, people just thought that, maybe just the common email and stuff like that. It's good to know that they are more than just these, right?
Yeah.
And it's important that the company actually practice to have, activities that's done not within just only digital cyber, but, physically.
It's all security. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really
and then my next question will sound not exciting at all because
pulling a chicken suit.
because I guess just now, I think one of the common tools that people are always use. I mean, in organization, we always look at file sharings and then data sharings and stuff like that, right? So from your perspective, what are some of the common mistakes that you see when it comes to people sharing files? And Yeah, see, this is less exciting conversation. But I think it's important because it's one of the very things that we always do. And it's important to, for people to take note of, what are some of the things that they need to look out
absolutely.
For, right? Yeah.
And I mean, it does link to the chicken suit in some respect because, being secure is all about risk management and how you deal with that risk. Yeah. And it's about when your guard goes down, and file sharing is an area where our guard does go down. Yeah. Obviously, there's some circumstances where it's slightly heightened. There's a lot of really good tools these days where if you're sharing attachments externally, the pop-up comes up like, do you want to share this? Has this been marked properly? So those are all tools that I would highly recommend any organization to adopt. The other really great thing with cloud having come in and the ability to, rather than attach documents, you're able to share them. Yeah. Because then you're able to deal with the access privileges really quickly. And, it's not just out there in the wild. You're able to lock it down and it's still sitting on your given area of that server. But file sharing, interestingly, is more of a hot topic since Gen AI has come about. Yes. And since Shadow AI. So our just ability to just attach that document to ChatGPT or whatever platform we're using and just ask them to create a summary, that's creating a huge vulnerability to governments and to companies and, governments was front of mind there because, see, just to our own individual. Yeah. So obviously from a privacy position, that's absolutely core to what's going wrong with sharing that.
Yeah.
But also from a more technology security perspective as well, people are able to then get information with regards to where your vulnerabilities and where the inputs into your organization might be. So shadow AI is a big one. Yeah.
I'm guilty of this.
No, don't say that on camera.
I think it's normal. I think it's also, I guess this is also very practical, right? I mean, because when it comes to being productive, right?
Exactly.
The productive versus cybersecurity.
Exactly.
There are things that when people are doing research, they are also, they want to fine tune whatever they are doing, that's where all this shadow AI comes into the picture that's not probably curated by the organization.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of restrictions in your own organization. That's where you actually exit out. But that poses additional layer of risk to your own organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's where you have to weigh between, that I guess individual has to be really responsible here, right? To what extent,
I think that absolutely the individual needs to take responsibility, but in terms of what can be controlled, the company needs to take responsibility as well. So if you put a massive block on all sort of AI productivity tools, then your employee is going to be left with a really difficult decision.
Yeah.
Do I finish off this piece of work in an hour?
Yes.
Or do I take the 8 hours that it would take me without using an AI tool?
Yes.
And back to everyone being human,
Yeah.
like the likelihood of them taking that hour is very, very high.
Yes.
So we need to, as companies, as leaders, recognize that you need to introduce AI tools. You need to understand that your employees want to be as productive as possible. And if you're putting blockers in place, you better make sure you've communicated super, super clearly why that blocker is in place and why they should suck up those 8 hours, because otherwise we're all just going to take the quickest route.
Agree. Yes, agree. And if someone is listening to this podcast, right, what would be one immediate habit they should start tomorrow and what it should be? Yeah.
So it's, oh gosh, no, I just keep saying it. It's talking. So
It's communication.
If you're a leader or if you are in a company that has put a massive block on productivity tools, whether that be AI, whether it be something similar, and it is driving a level of frustration that makes you feel like it's holding the company back, you need to have those conversations. You need to look at all the options open to you, ranging from, adopting something that maybe doesn't feel that secure, all the way down to, okay, keep doing it in that kind of manual-esque way that you're doing it now, and then decide everything in between. And if it's a question of anxiety over how much data you're putting out there or how much, tools and attack surface you're bringing into your organization, then, without being too plugging, that's where companies like RiverSec come in, and we can do those assessments for you to make sure you've got a really clear position on what that tool would do to your security posture. And it's money well spent. It's a few thousand that potentially, prevents millions being lost, or potentially your business completely collapsing because reputational. Exactly.
Agree. So I guess I'm mindful of time. I just want to do a quick fire round. So you just have to, I'll give you a very short a question where I want you to tell me whatever that just comes straight from your mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So, a few questions only. What is one digital tool that you will use every single day?
Oh, there's just so many.
Just one. Yeah, the top one in your list.
For me, it has to be like communication tools, whether that be, WhatsApp, Slack, Signal. You need to make sure that everyone's on the same tool, everyone knows the rules of engagement on that tool, and stay really constant.
And what's your favorite productivity hack?
Hack?
Yeah, hack.
Oh, so, I've mentioned ChatGPT loads. I've adopted it really early. So making sure that you're, getting correct prompts, like the prompts that you're using regularly, you're saving those, making sure you're staying really organized within different folders. That's been huge for me. It's such a powerful tool. I mean, I use Gemini and everything else as well.
I wanted to ask like ChatGPT or Gemini, but you
Yeah,
answered.
no,
you
yeah.
answered.
And I do use it for different things,
Okay.
but because I adopted ChatGPT really early, I just made sure I used all their organizational tools with it as well. So yeah, that's my hack.
And what's a common cyber mistake you have seen at work that people should avoid?
Oh my God. I wish they do this for a job. So many. It's not talking about it enough. Yeah. The companies that have the most vulnerabilities are the companies that aren't discussing it and just don't have a atmosphere where you can raise your hand if you think you've seen a suspicious email or not. So talk about it more. That would be day one to becoming more
Actually,
secure.
that's a simple yet very powerful statement, right? Rather than just thinking of like what's really a bit cyber mistake, but just at least start talking about it to realize it. I think this is a very good start already. And since it's for a PME audience, one skill you believe every PME should learn in the next 12 months. Don't tell me ISC squared. Don't tell me ISC squared.
Okay, they need to do some sort of qualification. Qualification, certification in AI then. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you really aren't keen to start in cyber, then
one for cyber, one non-cyber.
Yeah, there you are.
One for cyber, one for non-cyber.
And you just need to do it. Like they're online, all the materials there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need to go for an exam in an exam hall, but you just need to do it. If you're a leader of any organization right now, you need to do one digital certificate this year.
Okay. Any examples?
Yeah, I mean, loads. So AWS, Google, Microsoft, they've all got them. They're very good. All the information's there.
And cyber
CC.
Cyber will be CC, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap up, I would like to ask Daisy one last question. What would be your one key takeaway for this session?
Oh, I've loved this conversation so much. I could keep it going. I just think it's just one of the most important topics within cyber, within productivity, within the new digital age. How are leaders feeling confident and how are they putting that into the organizations that make up our world?
Yeah.
And I've just been so privileged to speak with you today and all the amazing work that DDAS are doing. I'm a big champion of their cause. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And lastly, I would like to just wrap up, right? So in today's digital age, right, cybersecurity awareness isn't just an IT concern. It's a professional skill, a leadership trait, as well as a career advantage. Being digitally ready means continuously upskilling, staying aware of risks, and adopting secure habits at work. Thank you for spending your time with me today. And thanks, Daisy, for your wonderful insights. Until next time, bye.